Yahweh's 613 laws.
All right, family. Yay. Some of y'all came. Jamal, you were here last week. We're just doing it this way, sending out email notifications so that we can cut down on all the trolling. So it's just exclusively us enjoying this time together, troll free. All right, so we're just going to give people a chance to come on in, and hopefully they'll be coming soon.
You've been told you're stylish by nature. By who? You can't quite recall.
All right. Now, you don't have to watch it here. You can, there's the link that I just put in there for YouTube. If you prefer to watch it on YouTube, you can do that as well. All right. All right. So let me just see something here. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Let me share my screen. Now, before we start the bylaws, the laws and bylaws that we're supposed to follow. Now, we are supposed to meditate on these laws all the time, you know, and it is something that we are told to do. So even if you don't have time to listen to it during the day, because I know some people work or you may have things you need to get done during the day, at night, turn on the bylaws and just lay down and listen to them. We're supposed to meditate on these laws. So this will give you a good opportunity. If you have not started doing this, you definitely want to add this to your daily routine and just let the laws play. Or if you want to read the laws in the book of Leviticus, you can do it that way as well. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, this is over 4 hours long. So what we're going to do is 2 hours today. And then next week, when we come back together, we will do the rest of it next week. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right. There we go. And this is actually done by a brother. And if you want to hear this again, what I will do, hold on, before I even get started, I'll leave the link to this so that you can listen to it on your own. Okay. 613 laws. And here's the link. So you can go out there and listen to it whenever you feel like listening to it. Okay. Now we can get started.
Yahweh's 613 laws, a reference guide, the 248 positive commandments, the worship of Yahweh. Law number 1, believe in Yahweh as the only source of power in the universe. Exodus 20, verse 2. I am Yahweh, your heavenly Father, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Law number 2, submit to Yahweh as the supreme head to be in unity with Yahweh. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our Father, Yahweh is one. Law number 3, love Yahweh with all our heart, soul, and might. Deuteronomy 6, verse 5. And you must love Yahweh your Father with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Law number 4, reverence Yahweh by keeping his laws. Deuteronomy 6, 1, 2, 13, and 25. Now these are the laws, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahweh your Father has commanded me to teach you, so that you may observe them in the land you are crossing over to possess, so that you may reverence Yahweh your Father by keeping all his statutes and his laws, which I command you, your son and your son's son, all the days of your life, and so that your days may be prolonged. Yahweh your Father you must reverence, and him you must serve, and by his name you must take your oaths. And it will be our righteousness if we observe to do all of this law before Yahweh our Father as he has commanded us. Law number 5, serve Yahweh. Exodus 23, verse 25. And you shall serve Yahweh your Father, and he will bless your bread and water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of you. Law number 6, hold fast to Yahweh. Deuteronomy 10, verse 20. You shall revere Yahweh your Father and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. Law number 7, taking an oath by Yahweh's name. Deuteronomy 6, verse 13. Yahweh your Father you must reverence, and him you must serve, and by his name you must take your oaths. Law number 8, walk in Yahweh's ways. Deuteronomy 28, verse 9. Yahweh will establish you as his holy people unto himself, as he promised you on oath, if you will keep the laws of Yahweh your Father and walk in all his ways. Law number 9, sanctify Yahweh's name. Leviticus 22, verse 32. You shall not profane my holy name, but I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. I am Yahweh who sanctifies you and sets you apart as holy. Law number 10, read, study, and meditate on the book of the law. Deuteronomy 6, verse 7. And you must teach them diligently to your children, and talk about them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. Law number 11, teach the book of the law to our children. Deuteronomy 6, verse 7. And you must teach them diligently to your children, and talk about them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. Law number 12, bind the law upon our hands. Deuteronomy 6, verse 8. You shall tie them as symbols upon your hand, and they shall be as a distinguishing mark in the eyes of everyone. Law number 13, write the law upon our minds. Deuteronomy 6, verse 8. You shall tie them as symbols upon your hand, and they shall be as a distinguishing mark in the eyes of everyone. Law number 14, make tzitzit on the corners of the talits. Numbers 15, 38 to 40. Speak to the children of Israel. Tell them to make tassels, tzitzit, on the corners of their garments, talit, throughout their generations, and to put a cord of blue in each tassel, tzitzit. And you shall have the tassel, the tzitzit, that you may look upon it and remember all the laws of Yahweh and do them, so that you do not follow after the lust of your own heart and your own eyes, after which you used to go a-whoring. By doing this, you may remember and do all my laws, thus becoming holy to your Father. Law number 15, preach and publish Yahweh's law. Deuteronomy 6, verse 9. And you shall write, preach, and publish them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates at the house of Yahweh. Law number 16, gather for the reading of the law every 7th year. Deuteronomy 31, 10 through 13. Then Moshe commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, in the set time of the year of release, at the appointed time for canceling debts, at the Feast of Tabernacles, when all Israel comes to appear in front of Yahweh your Father in the place he shall choose, you must read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men, women, children, and the strangers within your cities, so they may listen, and so they may learn to reverence Yahweh your Father by carefully observing and doing all the words of this law. In this same way, their children who do not know this law may listen to it, thereby learning to reverence Yahweh your Father as long as you live in the land which you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Law number 17. A king must acquire and apply the book of the law. Deuteronomy 17, 18 through 20. When he sits on the throne of his kingdom, then he shall write for himself a copy of this law, borrowed from the priests who are Levites, on a scroll. It is to remain with him, and he is to study it all the days of his life, so he may learn to reverence Yahweh his Father by carefully observing all the words of this law and these statutes, so he may not become proud and think himself better than his brothers, and turn away to the right hand or to the left from this law. Then he and his descendants will rule a long time in the midst of the kingdom. Law number 18. Acquire the book of the law. Deuteronomy 31, 19. Now this perfect law is therefore written for you. Teach it to the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, so that I have this perfect law bearing witness for those who reverence Yahweh. Law number 19. Be thankful to Yahweh in prayer, praise, and deed. Deuteronomy 8, verse 10. When you have eaten and are satisfied, then you must bless Yahweh your Father for the rich land he has given you. The temple and the priests. Law number 20. Build the holy house of Yahweh. Exodus 25, 8 to 9. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them, according to all that I show you after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, exactly so shall you make it. Law number 21. Reverence Yahweh in the house of Yahweh. Leviticus 19, verse 30. You shall reverence me by keeping my Sabbaths at my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Law number 22. Guard the house of Yahweh at all times. Numbers 18, 2 through 4. Bring with you your brothers of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your ancestors, to join you and assist you when you and your sons minister in front of the tent of the testimony. They are to join you and be responsible for the care of the tent of meeting, all the work at the tent, and no one else may come near where you are. Law number 23. The priests and Levites shall do their appointed work in the house of Yahweh. Numbers 18, 23, 6 and 7. It is the Levites who shall perform and do the work of the tent of meeting, and bear the responsibility for offense and sin against it. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations that among the children of Israel Levi shall have no inheritance. I myself have chosen your brothers, the Levites, from among the children of Israel as a gift to you, given by Yahweh to do the work of the tent of meeting. But only you and your sons may serve as priests in connection with everything at the altar and behind the veil, in the holy place and the holiest of holy. And you shall serve. I am giving you the service of the priesthood as a gift. Anyone else who comes near the sanctuary must be put to death. Law number 24. The priest must wash their hands and feet. Exodus 30, 17 to 21. Then Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, You shall also make a laver of bronze with its base also of bronze for washing. Place it between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Aaron and his sons are to wash their hands and feet with water from it. Whenever they enter the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water so they will not die. Also, when they approach the altar to minister by presenting an offering made by fire to Yahweh, they shall wash their hands and feet so they will not die. This is to be a statute forever for Aaron and his descendants throughout their generations. Law number 25. The priest must light the 7-lamp lampstand. Exodus 27, 21. In the tent of meeting, which is outside the veil that is in front of the testimony in the holy place, Aaron and his sons are to keep the lamps burning in front of Yahweh from the evening until the morning. This is to be a statute forever for their generations on behalf of the children of Israel. Law number 26. The priest must bless the people with the name of Yahweh. Numbers 6, 23 to 27. Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is how you are to bless the children of Israel. Say to them, Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be merciful to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they will put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Law number 27. The priest must set the showbread and frankincense before the ark. Exodus 25, verse 30. Put the showbread, the bread of the presence, on this table in front of me always. Law number 28. The priest must burn the incense on the golden altar in the morning and between the evenings. Exodus 37 through 8. Aaron must burn fragrant incense on the altar every morning when he tends the lamps. He must burn incense again when he light the lamps at evening, so incense will burn regularly in front of Yahweh, a perpetual incense in front of Yahweh throughout your generations. Law number 29. The priest must keep the fire burning on the altar continuously. Leviticus 6, 12 to 13. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning on it. It shall not be put out. The priest shall burn wood on it every morning and lay the burnt offering in order upon it. And he shall burn on it the fat of the peace offering. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. Law number 30. The priest must remove the ashes from the altar daily. Leviticus 6, 10 to 11. And the priest shall put on his linen garment and his linen undergarments, and take up the ashes of the burnt offering the fire has consumed on the altar, putting them beside the altar. Then he shall take off his garments, putting on the other garments, and carry the ashes outside the camp to the clean place. Law number 31. The priest must keep the ritually unclean out of the inner court of the house of Yahweh. Numbers 5:2-3. Command the children of Israel that they put out of the camp every leper and every person having an infectious skin disease, everyone who has a discharge, and whoever becomes ceremonially unclean because of a dead body. Send away both male and female. You shall put them outside the camp, so they will not defile their camp where I dwell among them. Law number 32. The priest must be regarded as holy. Leviticus 21:8. Therefore, you shall regard him as holy, because they offer of the food of Yahweh. He shall be holy to you, for I, Yahweh, who sets you apart as holy, am holy. Law number 33. The priest must dress in special priestly garments. Exodus 28:2-4 and 40. Make holy garments for your brother Aaron, for glory and for beauty. Tell all the skilled men to whom I have given wisdom in such matters that they are to make garments for Aaron and his consecration and sanctification, so he may serve me as high priest. These are the garments they are to make for the high priest: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a woven tunic, a turban, a mitzvah, and a sash. They are to make these holy garments for your brother Aaron and other priestly garments for his sons, so they may serve me as priests. For Aaron's sons, the regular priests, make tunics, sashes, and caps, mikvah, the kippah, for glory and for beauty. Law number 34. The priest must bear the responsibility for the house of Yahweh. Numbers 18:1 and 5. Then Yahweh said to Aaron, you and your sons and your ancestral tribe with you are to bear the responsibility for the sins against the sanctuary. And you and your sons alone are to bear the responsibility for sins against the priesthood. You are to be responsible for the care of the sanctuary and the altar, so that wrath will not fall on the children of Israel again. Deuteronomy 10:8. At that time, Yahweh set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, to stand in front of Yahweh to minister and to pronounce blessings in his name, as they do to this day. Law number 35. The priest must prepare the holy anointing oil according to its formula. Exodus 30:25. And you shall make from these a holy anointing oil, an ointment compounded according to the art of the perfumer. It shall be a holy anointing oil. Law number 36. The priests must perform their services at the house of Yahweh at the appointed times. Deuteronomy 18:6-8. If a Levite comes from any of your cities where he had been living among Israel, and comes with all earnestness of mind to the place Yahweh chooses, then he may serve in the name of Yahweh his father, just like all his fellow brothers, the Levites, who serve in front of Yahweh. He is to share equally in their benefits, even if he has received money from the sale of family possessions. Law number 37. The priest may become ritually unclean due to certain close relatives. Leviticus 21:1-4. Yahweh spoke to Moshe, speak to the ordinary priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall make himself ceremonially unclean for those who die among his people, except for his relatives who are nearest to him, his wife who is as his own body, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. Also his virgin sister who is depending on him. She has no husband. For her he may defile himself. Otherwise he must not defile himself, making himself ceremonially unclean, being a chief man among his people to profane himself. Law number 38. The high priest must marry only a virgin. Leviticus 21:13. The woman the high priest marries must be a virgin. Sacrifices. The continual burnt offering, tamid sacrifice, must be offered twice daily. Numbers 28:2-6. Command the children of Israel and say to them, see that you present to me at the appointed time the food for my offerings made by fire as an aroma pleasing to me. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire that you are to present to Yahweh. 2 lambs of the first year without blemish as a regular burnt offering each day. Sacrifice 1 lamb in the morning and the other between the 2 evenings, the morning and evening tamid. Present with each lamb 1/10 of an ephah, about 2 quarts of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with 1/4 of a hin, about 1 quart of pressed olive oil. This is the regular burnt offering instituted at Mount Sinai as a pleasing aroma and offering made by fire to Yahweh. Law number 40. The grain and drink offerings must be offered twice daily. Numbers 28, 5, and 7. Present with each lamb 1/10 of an ephah, about 2 quarts of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with 1/4 of a hin, about 1 quart of pressed olive oil. The accompanying drink offering is to be 1/4 of a hin, about 1 quart with each lamb. Pour out the drink offering to Yahweh at the sanctuary. Law number 41. An additional sacrifice must be offered every Sabbath. Numbers 28, 9 to 10. And on the Sabbath day, make an offering of 2 lambs of the first year without blemish, together with its drink offering and 2/10 of an ephah, about 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil, 1 ephah for each lamb. This is the burnt offering for every Sabbath day, in addition to the regular burnt offerings, the morning and evening tamid, and its drink offering. Law number 42. An additional sacrifice must be offered on the new moon. Numbers 28, 11. On the first day of every new moon, present to Yahweh a burnt offering of 2 young bulls and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of the first year, all without blemish. Law number 43. An additional sacrifice must be offered every day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Passover. Numbers 28, 18 through 24. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a holy convocation. You shall do no regular work, but you shall present an offering made by fire to Yahweh as a burnt offering of 2 young bulls and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of the first year. Be sure they are without blemish. With each bull, prepare a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah, about 6 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil. With the ram, prepare 2/10, about 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil. And with each of the 7 lambs, offer 1/10, about 2 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. Also include 1 male goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. Prepare and sacrifice these in addition to the regular morning burnt offerings, the morning tamid. In this way, prepare the food for the offering made by fire every day for 7 days as an aroma pleasing to Yahweh. Throughout the Feast of Unleavened Bread, this shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering, the morning and evening tamid with its prescribed drink offering. Law number 44. The Omar offering of the first barley must be brought on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Passover, and must be weighed by the priest on the second day of the feast. Leviticus 23, 10 to 14. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I am giving you, and you reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf in front of Yahweh to be accepted for you. On the day after the first holy day, Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. You shall offer on that day when you wave the sheaf a male lamb of the first year without blemish or defect as a burnt offering to Yahweh. The Omar grain offering shall be 2/10 of an ephah, about 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahweh for a pleasing aroma, and its drink offering shall be 1/4 of a hin, about 1 quart of wine. And you shall eat neither bread nor parched grain nor fresh green ears until the very day you have brought this Omar offering to Yahweh. This shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Law number 45. An additional offering must be offered at the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost. Numbers 28, 26 to 27. On the day of the first fruits, when you present to Yahweh an offering of new grain at the Feast of Weeks, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no regular customary work, but you shall present a burnt offering to Yahweh for a pleasing aroma of 2 young bulls and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of their first year. Law number 46. 2 wave loaves of baked bread with salt must be offered on the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost. Leviticus 23, 17. You shall bring from your habitations 2 wave loaves made from 2/10 of an ephah, about 4 quarts of fine flour. They shall be baked with salt, the first fruits to Yahweh. Law number 47. An additional sacrifice must be offered on the Feast of Trumpets, Numbers 29, 1 to 2. On the first day of the 7th moon, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no regular customary work. It is a day for you to sound the trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets. And you shall offer a burnt offering as an aroma pleasing to Yahweh of one young bull and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of the first year, all without blemish. Law number 48. An additional sacrifice must be offered on the Day of Atonement. Numbers 29, 7-8. On the 10th day of the 7th moon, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall afflict your souls, and you shall do no work at all. But you shall sacrifice a burnt offering to Yahweh as a pleasing aroma of one young bull and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of their first year. Be sure they are without blemish. Law number 49. The atonement service must be performed on the Day of Atonement. Leviticus 16, 29-34. This shall be a statute forever for you. On the 10th day of the 7th moon, you shall afflict your souls. You must fast and do no work at all, whether a native of your own country or a stranger who sojourns among you. For on that day, atonement will be made for you to cleanse you from all your sins in front of Yahweh. It is a Sabbath, a solemn rest for you, and you shall afflict your souls. It is a statute forever. And the priest who is anointed and consecrated and ordained to succeed his father as high priest is to make atonement. He is to put on the holy linen garments and make atonement for the most holy place, for the tent of meeting, the holy place, and the altar, and for the priests and all the people of the congregation. This shall be an everlasting statute for you to make atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as Yahweh commanded Moshe. Law number 50. An additional sacrifice must be offered every day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Numbers 29, 12-13. On the 15th day of the 7th moon, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no regular, customary work, and you shall keep a feast to Yahweh for 7 days, the Feast of Tabernacles. On the first holy day of the Feast of Tabernacles, you shall present an offering made by fire as an aroma pleasing to Yahweh, a burnt offering of 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs of the first year, all without blemish. Law number 51. An additional sacrifice must be offered on the last great day. Numbers 29, 35-36. On the 8th day, the last great day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no regular customary work, but you shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as an aroma pleasing to Yahweh of 1 bull and a ram, a total of 7 lambs of the first year, all without blemish. Law number 52. 3 times a year, keep a feast to Yahweh at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, and at the Feast of Tabernacles. Exodus 23, 14-17. 3 times in a year shall you keep a feast to me. You shall keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days, as I command you, at the time appointed in the moon of green ears of barley, Abib. For in it you came out of Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And keep the Feast of Harvest with the first fruit of the crops you sow in your field, and the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your crops from the field. 3 times in a year all your males shall appear in front of Yahweh. Law number 53. The feast of Yahweh must be kept only at the place Yahweh chooses at the house of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 12, 5-7 and 14. But you are to seek the habitation of your father, the house of Yahweh, the place which Yahweh your father shall choose out of all the tribes to establish his name, and there you must go. There you must bring your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and your special gifts you have vowed to give, your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. There in front of Yahweh your father, you and your family shall eat, and you shall rejoice in all that you have put your hand to do, because Yahweh your father has blessed you. But only in the place Yahweh chooses out of one of your tribes, there you must offer your burnt offerings, and there you must do all that I command you. Law number 54. Every household must appear before Yahweh and rejoice at the feast. Deuteronomy 16, 16 and 14. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear in front of Yahweh your father at the place he will choose, at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Weeks, and at the Feast of Tabernacles, and they must not appear in front of Yahweh empty-handed. And you shall rejoice at your feast, you and your wife or wives, your son, your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widows in your cities. Law number 55. The Passover lamb must be killed on the 14th day of Abib between the 2 evenings. Numbers 28, 16. On the 14th day of the first moon, between the 2 evenings, Yahweh's Passover lamb is to be sacrificed. Law number 56. The Passover lamb must be eaten on the night of the 15th day of Abib, Exodus 12:8-11. Then they must eat the meat in that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw nor boiled at all with water, only roast it in fire, its head with its legs and with its entrails. And you must let nothing of it remain until morning, but that which remains of it until morning you must burn with fire. And in this way you shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover. Law number 57. Those who are unclean from a dead body or away on a journey, stranded, detained, or imprisoned, must kill the Passover lamb in the second moon. Numbers 9:10-11. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, if any one of you or any of your descendants is unclean because of a dead body or away on a journey, he may still sacrifice Yahweh's Passover. On the 14th day of the second moon, between the two evenings, between around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sunset, they shall sacrifice it. They must eat the lamb with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Law number 58. The Passover in the second moon must be held according to all its ordinances. Numbers 9:11-12. On the 14th day of the second moon, between the two evenings, between around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sunset, they shall sacrifice it. They must eat the lamb with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until morning, nor break one of its bones. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they must sacrifice it. Law number 59. The silver trumpets must be sounded at feast times, new moons, and also in times of tribulation to call the congregation together. Numbers 10:9-10. Make 2 silver trumpets of hammered silver, and use them for calling the congregation together and for causing the camps to set forward. When you go to war in your land against an enemy who is oppressing you, then you shall make the clarion call on these trumpets, and you will be remembered by Yahweh your Father, and you will be saved from your enemies. Also in the day of your gladness, in your appointed feasts, and at your new moon festivals, you shall make the clarion call on the trumpets over the burnt offering and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings. And it will be a memorial remembrance for you in front of Yahweh your Father. I am Yahweh your heavenly Father. Law number 60. All animals to be sacrificed must be at least 8 days old. Leviticus 22:27. When a cow or a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it is to remain with its mother for 7 days. From the 8th day on, it will be acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. Law number 61. All animals to be sacrificed must be without blemish. Leviticus 22:21. Whoever offers a sacrifice of peace offering to Yahweh to fulfill a special vow or a freewill offering, it must be brought from the cattle or the sheep, and it must be perfect to be acceptable. There shall be no defect in it. Law number 62. All offerings must be salted. Leviticus 2:13. Every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of Yahweh to be lacking from your grain offerings. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. Law number 63. The law of the burnt offering. Leviticus 1:2-3. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any of you brings an offering to Yahweh, you shall bring your offering from your animals, from your herds, or from your flocks. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own free will at the door of the tent of meeting in front of Yahweh. Law number 64, the law of the sin offering. Leviticus 6:25. Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is the law of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is killed, the sin offering shall also be killed in front of Yahweh. It is most holy. Law number 65, the law of the trespass offering. Leviticus 7:1-2 and 7. This is the law for the trespass offering. It is most holy. In the place they killed the burnt offering, they shall kill the trespass offering. Its blood the priest shall sprinkle all around on the altar. The trespass offering is like the sin offering. One law concerns them both. The priest who makes atonement with it shall have it. Law number 66, the law of the peace offering. Leviticus 3:1. When an offering is a peace offering, it shall be brought from the herd, either male or female. It shall be without blemish in front of Yahweh. Law number 67, the law of the grain offering, Leviticus 2:1-2. When anyone offers a grain offering to Yahweh, his offering shall be of fine flour. He shall pour oil on it and put frankincense on it. He shall bring it to the sons of Aaron, the priest. A priest shall take from it a handful of fine flour, the oil, and all the frankincense, and the priest shall burn it as a memorial portion on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to Yahweh. Law number 68. If the congregation sins ignorantly, a sin offering must be brought. Leviticus 4:13-14. Now, if the whole congregation of Israel sins ignorantly and does what is forbidden in any of Yahweh's laws, though the congregation is unaware of this sin, they are still guilty. When the sin they have sinned becomes known, then the congregation shall offer a young bull for the sin, bringing it in front of the tent of meeting. Law number 69. If a person sins ignorantly, a sin offering must be brought when he learns of his sin. Leviticus 4:27-28. If any other member of the congregation sins ignorantly and does what is forbidden in any of Yahweh's laws, he is still guilty. When he is made aware of the sin he has sinned, then he shall bring as his sin offering a female goat without blemish. Law number 70. If a person is in doubt as to whether he has sinned in regard to any of the holy things, a suspensive guilt offering must be brought. Leviticus 5:15-19. If a person commits a trespass and sins ignorantly in regard to any of Yahweh's holy things, then he shall bring to Yahweh as his trespass offering a ram without blemish from the flocks, along with the proper value in silver of the trespass according to the shekel of the sanctuary as a trespass offering. And he shall make restitution for the harm he has done in regard to the holy thing, and shall add 1/5 of its value and give it to the priest. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. If anyone sins and commits any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the laws of Yahweh, though he does not know it, yet he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity. And he shall bring to the priest a ram without blemish from the flock with the estimated valuation as a trespass offering. So the priest shall make atonement for him regarding his ignorance, erring, and not knowing it, and it shall be forgiven him. It is a trespass offering. He has certainly trespassed against Yahweh. Law number 71. A sin offering must be brought for stealing, swearing falsely, and sins of a like nature. Leviticus 6:1-7. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, if a person sins and commits a trespass against Yahweh by lying to his brother about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he has deceived and extorted from his brother, or if he has found what was lost and lies concerning it, or vows falsely, in any of these things a man may do, sinning, then it shall be, because he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore what he has stolen, or the thing which he has deceitfully obtained, or what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or the lost thing which he found. For all he has vowed falsely about, he shall restore its full value, adding 1/5 more to it, and giving it to whomever it belongs on the day of his trespass offering. Then he shall bring his trespass offering to Yahweh, a ram without blemish from the flock, along with your valuation as a trespass offering to the priest. So the priest shall make atonement for him in front of Yahweh, and he shall be forgiven for any one of these things he may have done in trespass. Law number 72. The sin offering must be according to one's means. Leviticus 5:7-11. If he is not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring to Yahweh 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons for his trespass he has committed, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. But if he is not able to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he who sinned shall bring for his trespass offering 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, probably about 2 quarts as a sin offering. He shall put no oil on it, nor shall he put frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. Law number 73. We must confess our sins to Yahweh and repent for them and be converted to the keeping of Yahweh's laws. Numbers 5:6-7. Speak to the children of Israel. When a man or woman commits any wrong common to mankind, being unfaithful to Yahweh, that person is guilty. and must confess the sin he has committed, breach of trust or wrongful misappropriation of the property of another, living or dead. He shall make restitution for his trespass in full value plus 1/5 of the valuation and give it to the one he has wronged. Law number 74. A man who has an abnormal discharge, Zob, must bring a sacrifice. Leviticus 15:13-15. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he is to count off 7 clean days for his ceremonial cleansing. After sunset of the 7th day, beginning the 8th day, he must wash his clothes and bathe himself with running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come in front of Yahweh to the entrance to the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. The priest is to kill them, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, so the priest shall make atonement for him in front of Yahweh because of his discharge. Law number 75. A woman who has an abnormal discharge, Zaba, must bring a sacrifice. Leviticus 15:28-30. When her discharge has finally stopped, she must count off 7 clear days. Then she must purify herself. On the 8th day, she must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest is to kill one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement for her before Yahweh for the uncleanness of her discharge, Zaba. Law number 76. A woman must bring a sacrifice after childbirth. Leviticus 12:6-8. When the days of her purification are over, whether for a son or a daughter, then she shall bring to the priest a lamb of the first year as a burnt offering and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then he shall offer it in front of Yahweh to make atonement for her, and then she will be clean from her flow of blood. This is the law for her who has given birth to a male or a female. If she is not able to bring a lamb, then she may bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one as a burnt offering and the other as a sin offering. In this way, the priest shall make atonement for her, and she will be clean. Law number 77. A leper must bring a sacrifice after he has been cleansed. Leviticus 14:2-10. This shall be the law for the leprous or diseased person for the day of his cleansing when he shall be brought to the priest. On the 8th day, he must bring 2 male lambs and 1 all lamb, each of the first year and each without blemish, along with 3/10 of an ephah, about 6 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil, about 2/3 of a pint of oil. Law number 78. The first tithe is holy and belongs to Yahweh. Leviticus 27:30-33. And all the tithe, that is 1/10 of everything from the land, of the seed of the land, of the fruit of the tree, belongs to Yahweh. It is holy to Yahweh. If a man will at all redeem any of his tithes, he must add 1/5 to the value of it. The entire tithe, 10th, of the herd or the flock, of all things that pass under the rod, every 10th is holy to Yahweh. He must not pick out the finest from the bad, nor make any substitution. If he does make a substitution, both the chosen animal and also its substitute become holy and cannot be redeemed. Law number 79. The firstborn of clean animals are holy and belong to Yahweh. Exodus 13:2. Consecrate, sanctifying to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the children of Israel belongs to me, both of man and animal. It is mine. Law number 80. The firstborn sons belong to Yahweh, but may be redeemed. Exodus 34:19-20. The first offspring of every womb belongs to me, including the firstborn males of your livestock, whether from your herd or flock. But the firstling of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. If you will not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear in front of me empty-handed. Law number 81. The firstling of a donkey must be redeemed. Exodus 34:20. But the firstling of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. If you will not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear in front of me empty-handed. Law number 82. If the firstling of a donkey is not redeemed, its neck must be broken. Exodus 13:13. But every firstling of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man, among your sons you must redeem. Law number 83. All the tithes and offerings must be brought to the house of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 12:5-6. But you are to seek the habitation of your father, the house of Yahweh, the place which Yahweh your father shall choose out of all the tribes to establish his name, and there you must go. There you must bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and your special gifts you have vowed to give, your freewill offerings and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. Law number 84. The house of Yahweh is the only place Yahweh has chosen to receive tithes, sacrifices, and offerings. Deuteronomy 12:13-14 and 26. Be careful not to sacrifice your burnt offerings in every place you please, but only in the place Yahweh chooses out of one of your tribes. There you must offer your burnt offerings, and there you must do all that I command you. Take only the holy things you have and your vowed offerings, and go to the place Yahweh chooses. Law number 85. The blood of the sacrifices must be poured out on the altar of Yahweh for our atonement. Deuteronomy 12:27. There you must offer your burnt offerings, both the meat and the blood, on the altar of Yahweh your father, and the blood of your sacrifices shall be poured out on the altar of Yahweh your father. Then you shall eat the meat. Law number 86. Sanctified animals which have become blemished must be redeemed. Deuteronomy 15:19-22. All the firstborn males that come from your herd and your flock you must sanctify and set apart to Yahweh your father. You must do no work with your firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household of the Levites shall eat it, meat from the sacrifices of the firstborn animals, in front of Yahweh your father, year by year at the place Yahweh chooses. If there is any blemish in it, lameness, blindness, or any other defect, you must not sacrifice it to Yahweh your father. You must eat it within your cities as you would the gazelle or deer. The ceremonially unclean and the ceremonially clean alike may eat it. Law number 87. An animal exchanged for an offering is also holy. Leviticus 27:10-33. He must not exchange it or substitute a worthy one for a bad one, or a bad one for a worthy one. If he should substitute one animal for another, both it and the substitute become holy. He must not pick out the finest from the bad, nor make any substitution. If he does make a substitution, both the chosen animal and also its substitute become holy and cannot be redeemed. Law number 88. The priests are to eat the meat of the consecrated offerings. Exodus 29:33. They are to eat these things with which the atonement was made to consecrate and to sanctify them. But a stranger shall not eat these, because these are holy. Law number 89. The priests are to eat the remainder of the grain offering. Leviticus 10:12-13. Then Moshe spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his sons who were left. Take the grain offerings that remains of the offerings made by fire to Yahweh, and eat it without leaven beside the altar, for it is most holy. You must eat it in a holy place, because it is your share and your son's share of the offerings made by fire to Yahweh, for so I have been commanded. Law number 90. Consecrated meat of an offering which becomes ritually unclean must be burned. Leviticus 7:19. The meat that touches any unclean thing shall not be eaten. It must be burned with fire. As for the other clean meat, all who are clean may eat of it. Law number 91. Consecrated meat of an offering not eaten within its appointed time must be burned. Leviticus 7:17. The remainder of the meat of this offering must be burned with fire on the third day. Vows. Law number 92. A Nazirite must let his hair grow during the period of separation. Numbers 6:5. During the entire period of his vow separation, no razor may be used on his head. He must be holy until the period of his separation to Yahweh is over. He must let the hair of his head grow long. Law number 93. A Nazirite must shave his head and bring the sacrifice when the period of separation is over. Numbers 6:18. Then at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the Nazirite must shave off the hair that he dedicated. He is to take the hair and put it in the fire that is under the sacrifice of the peace offering. Law number 94. Vows and oaths to Yahweh must be kept. Deuteronomy 23:21-23. If you make a vow to Yahweh, you must not delay to pay it, for Yahweh your Father will certainly demand it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. But if you refrain from even making the vow in the first place, you will not be sinning. Whatever goes out of your mouth, you must be sure to do, because you made your vow freely of your own free will to Yahweh your Father with your own mouth. Law number 95, the law of binding and losing a vow. Numbers 32 through 16. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh or vows an oath to bind himself to some pledge, he shall not break his word. He must do everything he said he would do. When a young woman still living in her father's house vows a vow to Yahweh or vows an oath to bind herself to some pledge, and her father hears about her vow or pledge but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she has obligated herself will stand. But if her father forbids her when he hears about it, none of her vows or pledges by which she has obligated herself will stand. Yahweh will release her because her father has forbidden her. If she marries after she makes a vow or after she utters a rash promise by which she obligates herself, and her husband hears about it and says nothing to her, then her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband forbids her when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that obligates her or the rash promise by which she has obligated herself, and Yahweh will release her. But any vow or pledge taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding upon her. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow or obligates herself by a pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her and does not forbid her, then all her vows or the pledges she has obligated herself to will stand. But if her husband nullifies them when he hears about them, then none of her vows or pledges that came from her mouth will stand. Her husband has forbidden them, and Yahweh will release her. Her husband may confirm her vow, or her husband may make it void. But if her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or the pledges binding upon her. He has confirmed them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If he, however, nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. These are the statutes Yahweh gave Moshe concerning relationships between a man and his wife, and between a father and his young daughter still living in his house. Ritual purity. Law number 96. Anyone who touches or eats the carcass of an unclean animal becomes ritually unclean. Leviticus 11, 8, and 24. Their meat you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. And by these you will make yourself become unclean. Whoever touches the carcass of any of them will be unclean until sunset. Law number 97. Anyone who touches or eats the carcass of a clean animal that dies of itself or is torn by wild animals becomes ritually unclean. Leviticus 11, 39 through 40. If an animal you are allowed to eat dies, he who touches its carcass shall be unclean until sunset. Anyone who eats of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until sunset. He also who carries its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until sunset. Leviticus 17, 15. Anyone, whether he is a native of your own country or a stranger who eats anything found dead or torn by wild animals, he shall both wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until sunset. Then he shall be clean. Law number 98. Articles that come in contact with sources of ritual uncleanness become ritually unclean. Leviticus 11, 32, and 34. When one of them dies and falls on something, that article, whatever its use, shall be unclean, whether an item of wood, clothing, skin, or sack. Whatever item it is that is used in work, it must be put in water, and it shall be unclean until sunset, then it shall be clean. Any food that could be eaten but has water on it from such a vessel is unclean, and any liquid that could be drunk from it is unclean. Law number 99. Menstruous women are ritually unclean. Leviticus 15, 19 through 24. When a woman's flow of blood, nida, zava, has ended, she will continue in her impurity for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during this time will be unclean until sunset. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean, and anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe with water and he will be unclean until sunset. Whoever touches anything she sits on must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean until sunset. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, he will be unclean until sunset. If a man lies with her and her monthly flow touches him, he will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. Law number 100. Women after childbirth are ritually unclean. Leviticus 12:2-5. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a woman has conceived and gives birth to a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of her monthly period. She shall be unclean. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised. She shall then continue in the blood of her purification 33 more days. She shall not touch any holy thing, kodesh, nor come into any consecrated place, mikvash, until the days of her purification are over, for a total of 40 days. However, if she gives birth to a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, 14 days, as in her monthly period, and she shall continue in the blood of her purification 66 more days, for a total of 80 days. Law number 101. Anyone with a spreading skin disease is ritually unclean. Leviticus 13:2-3. When anyone has a swelling or a rash or a bright spot on his skin that may become an infectious skin disease like leprosy, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of his sons, the priest. The priest shall look at the sore on the skin of the body, and if the hair on the sore has turned white and the sore appears deeper than the rest of his skin, it is an infectious skin disease. When the priest examines him, he shall pronounce him ceremonially unclean. Law number 102. Any clothing contaminated with a spreading disease is ritually unclean. Leviticus 13:47-50-51. And if any clothing is contaminated with mildew, woolen or linen clothing, the priest is to examine the mildew and isolate the articles in question for 7 days. On the 7th day, he is to re-examine it, and if the mildew has spread in the clothing, in the woven or knitted material, or in the leather, whatever its use, it is a destructive mildew. The article is unclean. Law number 103. A house contaminated by a spreading disease is ritually unclean. Leviticus 14:34-44. When you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you as a possession, and I put a spreading mildew in a house in that land, then the priest is to go and examine it again, and if the mildew has spread in the house, it is a destructive mildew. The house is unclean. Law number 104. A man having an abnormal discharge, zob, is ritually unclean. Leviticus 15:2. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any man has a discharge, that discharge is unclean. Law number 105. Anyone or anything coming into contact with semen becomes ritually unclean. Leviticus 15:16-18. When any man has an emission of semen, then he shall bathe all his body in water, and he will be unclean until sunset. Any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed with water, and it will be unclean until sunset. When a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both must bathe with water, and they will be unclean until sunset. Law number 106. A woman with an abnormal discharge, zaba, is ritually unclean. Leviticus 15:19-25-28. When a woman's flow of blood, nida, zava, has ended, she will continue in her impurity for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during this time will be unclean until sunset. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, zava, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, zava, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge. She will be unclean just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean, as her bed is during her monthly period, and anything she sits on will be unclean, just as during her monthly period. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean until sunset. When her discharge has finally stopped, she must count off 7 clear days. Then she must purify herself. Law number 107. A human corpse and anyone who comes near it is ritually unclean. Numbers 19:11-14. He who touches the dead body of anyone shall be unclean 7 days. He must purify himself with the water of the red heifer after the 3rd day and after the 7th day. Then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself after the 3rd day and after the 7th day, he will not be clean. Whoever touches the dead body of anyone and fails to purify himself defiles the tabernacle of Yahweh. That person shall be cut off from Israel. He shall remain unclean because the water of purification was not sprinkled on him. His uncleanness is still on him. This is the law that applies when a person dies in a tent. Anyone who enters the tent and anyone who is in it will be unclean for 7 days. Law number 108. The purification water purifies the ritually unclean. Numbers 19:9. Then a man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the red heifer and put them in a ceremonially clean place outside the camp. They shall be kept by them for the congregation of the children of Israel, for the water of purification from impurity. It is for purifying from sin. Law number 109. Those ritually unclean must purify at the appointed time by laundering their clothes and immersing in water. Leviticus 15:27. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean until sunset. Law number 110. Those ritually unclean of a spreading skin disease must follow the specified purification procedure. Leviticus 14, verse 2. This shall be the law for the leprous or diseased person, for the day of his cleansing, when he shall be brought to the priest. Law number 111. Those unclean of a spreading skin disease must shave off all their hair. Leviticus 14:9. On the seventh day, he must shave off all his hair. He must shave his head, his beard, his eyebrows, and the rest of his hair. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water, and then he will be clean. Law number 112. Those unclean of a spreading skin disease must be easily distinguishable. Leviticus 13:45. The person with such an infectious disease must wear torn clothes, uncover his head, cover the lower part of his face, and cry out, unclean, unclean. Law number 113. The ashes of the red heifer are to be used in ritual purification. Numbers 19:2-9. This is a statute of the law of Yahweh has commanded, saying, speak to the children of Israel and tell them to bring you a red heifer without blemish or defect, and that has never been under a yoke, never having been used for secular purposes. Then a man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the red heifer and put them in a ceremonial clean place outside the camp. They shall be kept by them for the congregation of the children of Israel, for the water of purification from impurity. It is for purifying from sin. Tithes and offerings to the house of Yahweh. Law number 114. The priest must set the value of a person dedicated to Yahweh. Leviticus 27:2, 8-25. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man consecrates by a special vow certain persons to Yahweh by giving equivalent values, if anyone making the vow is too poor to pay the specified amount, he is to present the person to the priest, who will set the value for him according to what the man making the vow can afford. Every value is to be set according to the sanctuary shekel, 20 gerahs to the shekel, about 1/50 ounce of silver to each gerah. Law number 115. The priest must set the value of an animal dedicated to Yahweh. Leviticus 27:11-13 and 27. If what he vowed is a ceremonially unclean animal, one that is not acceptable as an offering to Yahweh, the animal must be presented to the priest, who will judge its quality as worthy or bad. Whatever value the priest then sets, that is what it will be. If the owner desires at all to redeem it, then he must add 1/5 to the priest's valuation. If it is an unclean animal, then he may redeem it according to the valuation of the priest, and shall add 1/5 of its value to it. If it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold according to the priest's valuation. Law number 116. The priest must set the value of a house dedicated to Yahweh. Leviticus 27:14-15. If a man dedicates his house as something holy to Yahweh, the priest will judge its value for it, so shall it remain. If the man who dedicates his house redeems it, he must add 1/5 more to its valuation. The house will again become his. Law number 117. The priest must set the value of a field dedicated to Yahweh. Leviticus 27:16-22-23. If a man dedicates to Yahweh part of his inherited family land, its value is to be set according to the amount of seed needed to plant it. A homer of barley seed, probably about 6 bushels, shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver, about 1¼ pounds of silver. If a man dedicates to Yahweh a field he has bought, which is not a part of his inherited family land, then the priest will determine its value up to the year of Jubilee, and the man must pay the priest's valuation on that day as a holy offering to Yahweh. Law number 118. If one sins ignorantly regarding the holy offerings, full restitution must be made, adding a fifth of the value to it. Leviticus 22:14. If anyone eats a holy offering by mistake, he must make restitution to the priest for the offering and add a fifth of the value to it. Law number 119. The fruit of the 4th year's growth is holy and must be given to the priest. Leviticus 19:23-25. When you have come into the land and plant any kind of fruit tree, regard its fruit as uncircumcised, that is forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you, it shall not be eaten. In the 4th year, all its fruit will be holy as a praise offering to Yahweh, which you will give to the priest. Then in the 5th year, you may eat its fruit. In this way, your harvest will be increased. I am Yahweh, your father. Law number 120. The corners of a field that is reaped must be left for the poor. Leviticus 19:9. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not completely harvest the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. Law number 121. The gleanings of a field that is reaped must be left for the poor. Leviticus 19:9. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not completely harvest the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. Law number 122. The forgotten sheaves of a field that is reaped must be left for the poor. Deuteronomy 24:19. When you are gathering the harvest in your field and forget to pick up a sheaf, you must not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, so Yahweh your Father will bless you in all the work of your hands. Law number 123. Any remaining olives or grapes must be left for the poor. Deuteronomy 24:20-21. When you beat the olives from your trees, you must not go over the boughs twice. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you harvest the grapes of your vineyard, do not go over the vines again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Law number 124. Any fallen grapes must be left for the poor. Leviticus 19:10. You shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yahweh your Father. Law number 125. The first fruits of all our labor must be separated and brought to the house of Yahweh. Exodus 23:19. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of Yahweh. Law number 126. All holy offerings must be given to the priest at the house of Yahweh. Numbers 18:8-14 and 21. Then Yahweh said to Aaron, I myself have put you in charge of the offerings presented to me. Terma. All the holy offerings the children of Israel give to me, I give to you and to your sons as your portion and regular share. You are to have the part of the most holy offerings kept back and reserved from the fire, from all the gifts they bring to me as most holy offerings, from every grain offering, from every sin offering, and from every trespass offering, which they give to me, that part belongs to you and to your sons. In a most holy place you shall eat it, every male shall eat it. You must regard it as holy. This is also yours. Whatever is set aside from the gifts of all the wave offerings of the children of Israel, I give this to you and to your sons and daughters as your regular share. Everyone in your household who is ceremonially clean may eat it. I give you all the finest olive oil and all the finest new wine and the grain they give to Yahweh as the first fruits of their harvest. All the first ripe fruit in their land, which they bring to Yahweh, shall be yours. Everyone in your household who is ceremonially clean may eat it. Everything in Israel that is devoted to Yahweh, Kerem, is yours. See, I give the children of Levi all the tithes, the 10th in Israel, as their inheritance in return for the work they perform and do while serving at the tent of meeting. Law number 127. The first tithe, the first 10th of all our increase must be given to the house of Yahweh for the work of Yahweh. Leviticus 27, verse 30. And all the tithe, that is 1/10 of everything from the land of the seed of the land, of the fruit of the tree belongs to Yahweh. It is holy to Yahweh. Deuteronomy 14:22. You must truly tithe all your income, grain, money you are paid, animals, year by year. Deuteronomy 12:6. There you must bring your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and special gifts you have vowed to give, your freewill offerings and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. Law number 128. The second tithe must be set aside for the feast of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 14:23-26. Eat the second tithe of your grain, your new wine, your oil, and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks in front of Yahweh your Father in the place he chooses to establish his name, thereby learning to reverence Yahweh your Father always. But if the way is too long for you, so you are not able to carry it, or if the place Yahweh your Father has chosen to set his name is too far from you when Yahweh your Father has blessed you, then you are to exchange it into money and take money into your hand, and you shall go to the place Yahweh your Father chooses. Then you shall spend that money for whatever you desire to have, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatever you desire to have. You shall then eat there in front of Yahweh your Father, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. Law number 129. The priests and Levites must also tithe to the work of Yahweh. Numbers 18:25-28-29. Then Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, in this way you shall also offer an offering to Yahweh from all your tithes you receive from the children of Israel. From these tithes you must give Yahweh's portion, the first tithe, to Aaron the priest. You must present as Yahweh's portion the tenth, the best and holiest part of everything that has been given to you. Law number 130. The third tithe must be set aside for the poor in the 3rd and 6th years of the 7th year cycle. Deuteronomy 14:28-29. Toward the end of every 3rd year, you shall bring forth all of your income designated that year, the 3rd tithe, and store it within your gates, the house of Yahweh. So the Levite, who is also allotted the first tithe, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates, may come to Yahweh's feast and eat and be satisfied, so Yahweh your Father may bless you and all the work of your hands. Law number 131. Tithes and offerings must be presented to Yahweh with prayer. Deuteronomy 26:13-14. Then you shall vow in front of Yahweh your Father, I have removed this holy portion, my first tithe, from my house, and also I have given my 3rd tithe for the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, according to all your laws which you have commanded me. I have not transgressed your laws, nor have I forgotten them. I have not eaten my second tithe in reverence to any god, El Turpah, nor have I removed my second tithe while I was unclean, nor have I offered any of my second tithe to the dead. I have obeyed Yahweh my Father. I have done everything you have commanded me. Law number 132. Each household is to bring or send their tithes and offerings before Yahweh to the house of Yahweh. No Christian collection plate. Deuteronomy 26:2-4 and 10. You must take some of the first of all the fruit of the earth, which you shall bring from the land Yahweh your Father has given you, and you must put it in a basket and go to the place Yahweh your Father will choose to establish his name. And say to the one who is priest in those days, I declare unto Yahweh my Father this day that I have come to the country which Yahweh vowed on oath to our forefathers to give us. Then the priest shall take the basket out of your hand and set it down in front of the altar of Yahweh your Father. And now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the land which you, O Yahweh, have given me. Then you shall set it before Yahweh your Father and worship before Yahweh your Father. Law number 133. The first portion of the grain offering must be given to the priest at the house of Yahweh. Numbers 15:20-21. Present a cake, challah, from the first of your ground meal, and present it as an offering from the threshing floor. Throughout your generations, you shall give this offering to Yahweh from the first of your ground meal. The sabbatical year. Law number 134. Every 7th year is a Sabbath of rest for the land. Leviticus 25:2-5. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath unto Yahweh. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to Yahweh. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows voluntarily of your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your unintended vine. The land is to have a year of rest. Law number 135. In the 7th year, everything that grows is to be eaten by all. Exodus 23, 10 to 11. 6 years shall you sow your land and gather in its produce. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. Leviticus 25, 6. Whatever the land yields during the Sabbath year will be food for you, for yourself, your manservant and maidservant, for the hired worker, and for the stranger who lives among you. Law number 136. You must consecrate and proclaim the Jubilee year. Leviticus 25, 10 to 12. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows voluntarily, nor gather the grapes from your unintended vines. For it is the jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its produce from the field. Law number 137. On the Day of Atonement in the Jubilee year, the shofar must be sounded and Hebrew slaves set free. Leviticus 25, 9 to 10 and 13. Then you have the trumpet of the Jubilee sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th moon. On the Day of Atonement, sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his possession. Law number 138. In the Jubilee year, all the land is to be returned to its appointed owners. Leviticus 25, 23 to 24 and 28. The land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine, and you are but strangers and my tenants. Throughout the country that you hold as a possession, you must provide for the redemption of the land. But if he is not able to restore it to himself, then what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Jubilee. Then in the Jubilee it shall be released, and he shall return to his possession. Law number 139. In a walled city, the seller has a right to buy back a house within a year of the sale. Leviticus 25, 29 to 30. If a man sells a house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year, he may redeem it. But if it is not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house in the walled city shall permanently belong to him who bought it. Throughout his generations, it shall not be released in the Jubilee. Law number 140. The years until the Jubilee must be counted. Leviticus 25, 8. And you shall count 7 Sabbath of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7th Sabbath of years shall be to you 49 years. Law number 141. The 7th year is the year of release. Deuteronomy 15, 1 to 3. At the end of 7 years, you shall grant a release. This is the form of the release. Every creditor who has lent to his brother shall cancel the loan he has made. He shall not press his brother for payment, for a release has been proclaimed in honor of Yahweh, Yahweh's release. From a foreigner you may press for payment, but you shall release what is owed from your brother. Law number 142. In the 7th year, a foreigner may be pressed for payment of a debt. Deuteronomy 15, verse 3. From a foreigner you may press for payment, but you shall release what is owed from your brother. Clean animals fit for consumption and offering. Law number 143. The priests must receive their share of all clean animals that are slaughtered. Deuteronomy 18, verse 3. This shall be the priest's share from the people who kill a bull or a sheep, slaughtered for ordinary consumption, the shoulder, the cheeks, and the inner parts. Law number 144. The priest must receive the first fleece from the shearing of sheep. Deuteronomy 18, verse 4. You are to give them the first fruits of your grain, new wine, oil, and the first fleece from the shearing of your sheep. Law number 145. Anything devoted to Yahweh becomes most holy to Yahweh and becomes the property of the house of Yahweh and the priests. Leviticus 27:28. But nothing a man may own, then devote as a holy offering to Yahweh, whether man, animal, or family land, may be sold or redeemed. Everything so devoted is most holy to Yahweh. Law number 146. To be fit for consumption, clean animals must be slaughtered. Do not eat what dies of itself or is killed by wild beasts. Deuteronomy 12:21. If the place where Yahweh your father chooses to put his name is too far from you, then you may slaughter from your herd or from your flock Yahweh has given you, just as I have commanded you. And in your own cities you may eat as much of them as you want. Law number 147. The blood of slaughtered clean animals must be poured on the ground and covered with earth. Leviticus 17:13. Whatever man of the children of Israel or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eating, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. Law number 148. Set the mother bird free when taking the nest or the young. Deuteronomy 22:6-7. If you come across a bird's nest beside the way, either in a tree or on the ground, and the mother is sitting on the young or on the eggs, do not take the mother with the young. Be sure to let the mother go, then take the young for yourself, that it may go well with you, and you may have a long life. Law number 149. Examine the meat of animals to make sure it is permitted for consumption. Leviticus 11:2-3. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, these are the animals you may eat among all the beasts upon the land. You may eat any animal that has a split hoof, completely divided, and which chews the cud. These you may eat. Law number 150. Examine fowl to make sure they are permitted for consumption. Deuteronomy 14:11. All clean birds you may eat. Law number 151. Examine locusts to make sure they are permitted for consumption. Leviticus 11:21-22. Yet these you may eat of every flying insect that walks on all fours, those who have jointed legs above their feet for hopping on the ground. These you may eat, the locust after its kind, the destroying locust after its kind, the cricket after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind. Law number 152. Examine fish to make sure they are permitted for consumption. Leviticus 11:9. These you may eat of all that are in the waters, whatever has both fins and scales in the waters, whether in the seas or in the rivers, that you may eat. The feast and Sabbaths. Law number 153. The new moons are to be observed to set Yahweh's feasts. Exodus 12:2. This moon shall be your beginning of moons. It shall be the first moon of the year to you. Deuteronomy 16:1. Watch for the moon of green ears of barley, Abib. Law number 154. The seventh day of every week is Yahweh's Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Exodus 23:12. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the seventh day you shall rest, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your maidservant and the stranger may be refreshed. Law number 155. Keep the Sabbath day holy by making preparation in advance. Exodus 20:8-11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh, your heavenly Father. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your wife, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger who dwells within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Yahweh made the Sabbath day holy. Exodus 16:23. Then he said to them, this is what Yahweh has commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. So bake what you will bake today and boil what you will boil, and save what is left over and keep it until morning. Law number 156. Remove all leaven from all your property before the 15th of Abib. Exodus 12:15. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the day before you must remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day through the seventh day of Yahweh's feast of unleavened bread, that person will be cut off from Israel. Law number 157. On the 15th day of Abib, teach our children the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Exodus 13:8. And in that day you shall tell your son, saying, this is done because of what Yahweh did for me when I came out of Egypt. Law number 158. Eat unleavened bread from the 15th through the 21st of Abib. Exodus 12, verse 18. In the first moon, on the 14th day of the moon at evening, you must eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the moon at evening. Law number 159. The first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Passover, is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Cooking may be done on a feast day Sabbath, but not on the weekly Sabbath. Exodus 12, verse 16. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and on the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on these days, except that which everyone must eat, that only may be done by you. Law number 160. The seventh day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Passover, is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Exodus 12, verse 16. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and on the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on these days, except that which everyone must eat, that only may be done by you. Law number 161. Count 50 days from the day after the first holy day Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the count of Omar, to the Feast of Weeks. Leviticus 23, 15 through 16. And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the first holy day Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 full weeks shall be completed. Count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th week. Then you shall offer new grain offering to Yahweh. Law number 162. The Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 21. And you shall proclaim on that same day that it may be a holy convocation to you, Shabbat, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of First Fruits. You shall do no regular work on it. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Law number 163. The Feast of Trumpets is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 24. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th moon, on the first of the moon, you shall have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets, a holy convocation. Law number 164. The Day of Atonement is a complete fasting. Leviticus 16, 29 to 31. This shall be a statute for you. On the 10th day of the 7th moon, you shall afflict your souls. You must fast and do no work at all, whether a native of your own country or a stranger who sojourns among you. For on that day atonement will be made for you to cleanse you from all your sins in front of Yahweh. It is a Sabbath of solemn rest to you, and you shall afflict your souls. It is a statute forever. Law number 165. The Day of Atonement is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 27 to 32. Also, the 10th of this 7th moon is the Day of Atonement. It shall be a holy convocation for you. You shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. You shall do no work at all on the same day, for it is the Day of Atonement, to make atonement for you in front of Yahweh your heavenly Father. Any person who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. Any person who does any work on that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. You shall do no manner of work at all. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings, wherever you may live. It is to you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict yourselves. On the 9th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun, through the 10th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun, from evening until evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. Law number 166. The first day of the Feast of Tabernacles is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 34 to 35. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th moon is the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahweh. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no regular work upon it. Law number 167. The last great day is a Sabbath of rest and a holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 36. But for 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. On the 8th day you shall have a holy convocation, the last great day, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. It is the closing gathering of Yahweh's sacred year, and you shall do no customary regular work upon it. Law number 168. Dwell in booths, sukkah, temporary dwellings, during the Feast of Tabernacles. Leviticus 23, verse 42. And you shall live in booths for 7 days. All who are native-born children of Israel shall live in booths. Law number 169. A sukkah must be built before the Feast of Tabernacles. Leviticus 23, verse 40. On the day before, you are to take choice fruit from the trees, pomegranates, and palm branches, leafy branches, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice in front of Yahweh your Father for 7 days. Law number 170. Sound the shofar on the Feast of Trumpets. Numbers 29, verse 1. On the first day of the 7th moon, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no regular customary work. It is a day for you to sound the trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets. Laws concerning the duty of the community and observing the authority of Yahweh's laws and Yahweh's anointed. Law number 171. Every male 20 years old and above must give half a shekel to the house of Yahweh annually. Exodus 30, verse 12 to 16. When you take the census of the children of Israel to count them, each one must pay Yahweh a ransom for his life at the time he is counted. Then no plague will come on them when you number them. This is what everyone among those who are numbered shall give, half a shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary, about 1/5 ounce. The half shekel is an offering to Yahweh. Everyone included among those who are numbered, being 20 years old and above, shall give an offering to Yahweh. The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than half a shekel, giving an offering to Yahweh to make atonement for yourselves. And you shall take the atonement money of the children of Israel, and you shall appoint it for the service of the tabernacle of meeting, that it may be a memorial for the children of Israel in front of Yahweh to make atonement for yourselves. Law number 172. Listen to and obey Yahweh's anointed servant, the overseer of the house of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. Yahweh, your father, will raise up for you a prophet like me. From the midst of your brothers, him you must listen to. For this is what you asked of Yahweh at Horeb on the day you gathered together, saying, let us not hear the voice of Yahweh our Father, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die. Then Yahweh said to me, what they have spoken is the truth. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. Whoever will not listen to my words, which he speaks in my name, I will judge him for it. Law number 173. The king must be appointed by Yahweh. Deuteronomy 17, verse 15. Then be sure you set a king over you, whom Yahweh your father chooses. He must be from among your own brothers. He must not be a foreigner who is not your brother. Law number 174. Listen to and obey Yahweh's anointed priests, the body of elders of the house of Yahweh, under the direction of the overseer of the house of Yahweh. Deuteronomy 17, 9 to 11. Go to the priests who are Levites and to the judge who is in office at that time. Ask for their decision, and they will give you the sentence of judgment. You must act according to the sentence they pronounce for you at the place Yahweh chooses. Be careful to do all they order you to do. According to the law that they teach you, you shall do. And according to the decisions that they give you, you shall do. You must not turn aside to the right hand nor to the left from the sentence they pronounce for you. Law number 175. Speak the truth when testifying in a lawsuit or an investigation. Exodus 23, verse 2. Do not follow the crowd in doing evil when you give testimony in a lawsuit. Do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. Law number 176. The priests and their assistants must be chosen by Yahweh. Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. You must appoint judges and officers in all the cities Yahweh your father gives you from each of your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Law number 177. The priests of the house of Yahweh, chosen by Yahweh, must judge the people impartially according to Yahweh's laws. Leviticus 19, verse 15. Do not pervert judgment. You shall not show partiality to the poor, nor honor to the person of the great. In righteousness you shall judge your brother fairly. Law number 178. Whoever is aware of evidence in a case must speak up and testify. Leviticus 5, verse 1. If a person sins because he does not speak up when he hears a public charge to testify regarding something he has seen or knows about, he will be held responsible. Law number 179. The testimony of witnesses shall be examined thoroughly by the priests. Deuteronomy 13, verse 14. Then you must inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. And if it is true, and it has been proven that such an abomination was committed among you. Law number 180. False witnesses shall be judged according to the law. Deuteronomy 19, verse 19. Then do to him as he intended to do to his brother. In this way you will purge the evil from among you. Law number 181. When a person is found murdered and the murderer is unknown, the prescribed ritual must be performed. Deuteronomy 21, 1-9. If anyone is found slain, lying in a field in the land Yahweh your father has given you to possess, and it is not known who killed him, then your elders and your judges shall go out and measure the distance from the body to the neighboring cities. Then the elders of the city nearest the body shall take a heifer that has not been worked and which has not pulled with a yoke, and lead her down to a valley that has not been plowed or planted, and where there is a flowing stream. There in the valley they are to break the heifer's neck. The priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for Yahweh your father has chosen them to minister and to pronounce blessings in the name of Yahweh and to decide all cases of controversy and assault. Then all the elders of the city nearest the body shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. And they shall declare, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Accept this atonement for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, O Yahweh, and do not hold your people guilty of the blood of an innocent man, and the bloodshed shall be atoned for. In this way you will purge from yourselves the guilt of shedding innocent blood, since you have done that which is right in the sight of Yahweh. Law number 182. 6 cities of refuge in the land of Israel must be established. Numbers 35, 11-13. Then appoint cities to serve as your cities of refuge where a person who accidentally kills someone may flee. They shall be cities of refuge from the blood avenger, so that a person accused of murder may not die before he stands in judgment in front of the congregation. Of all the cities you give, 6 shall be cities of refuge. Law number 183. The priests and Levites must be given cities to live in. Numbers 35, 2-3. Command the children of Israel to give the Levites cities to live in, from the inheritance they will possess. Also give the Levites the common land around these cities. They shall have these cities to live in, and the open land around them shall be for their cattle, herds, and animals. Law number 184. Build a guardrail around the roof, if it is flat and used as living space, and a guard against hazards in the home. Deuteronomy 22, verse 8. When you build a new house, then you must make a parapet for your roof, so you may not bring the guilt of bloodshed upon your house if anyone falls from it. God worship, the worship of Elohim. Law number 185. The practice of God worship must be destroyed. Deuteronomy 12, verse 2-4. You must utterly destroy all the places where the nations you shall drive out worship their gods, Elohim, on the high mountains, on the hills, and under every spreading tree. You must destroy their altars, break down their sacred pillars, images of the sun god Baal, and burn their sacred poles, Asherah poles, cut down the images of their gods, Elohim, Teraphim, and wipe out their names from those places. You must not worship Yahweh your Father in such ways. Yahweh your Father is not a God. L. Law number 186. A city which turns to God worship must be treated according to the law. Deuteronomy 13, 12-15. If you hear it said about one of the cities that Yahweh has given you to live in, that corrupt men have risen up among you and enticed and led the inhabitants of their own city astray, saying, let us go and worship gods, Elohim, which you have not known, then you must inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. And if it is true, and it has been proven that such an abomination was committed among you, you shall surely kill the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying Kerim, all that is in it with its livestock. Law number 187. The God-worshiping nations will be destroyed. Deuteronomy 20, verse 17. You must utterly and completely destroy them, Kerim, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, just as Yahweh your Father has commanded you. Law number 188. Blot out the remembrance of God worshippers. Deuteronomy 25, verse 19. Therefore, when Yahweh your Father has given you rest from your enemies all around you, in the land Yahweh your Father has given you to possess as an inheritance, then blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget this. Law number 189. Remember what the God worshippers did to Israel. Deuteronomy 25, 17-18. Remember what the Amalekites did to you on the way as you were coming out of Egypt. Amalek met you on your journey and attacked all the stragglers in the rear rank. When you were tired and weary, Amalek did not reverence Yahweh. Laws concerning times of tribulation and persecution. Law number 190. Our conduct must be according to Yahweh's law during times of persecution. Deuteronomy 20, verse 11 to 12. If they accept your offer of peace and open their gates to you, all the people in it shall be subject to forced labor and shall work for you. But if the city will not make peace with you, but would engage you in battle, then you shall besiege it. Law number 191. The priest must address the congregation in times of tribulation. Deuteronomy 20, verse 2 to 4. When you are about to go into battle, the priest shall come forward and address the men of war. And he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted, do not be afraid, do not tremble, nor be terrified because of them. For Yahweh your Father is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies and gives you victory. Law number 192. The camp of Yahweh must be kept in a sanitary condition. Deuteronomy 23, verse 9. When you are encamped against your enemies, keep yourself from every impure thing. Law number 193. The camp of Yahweh must be equipped with the necessary implements to keep it in a sanitary condition, and each must do his part. Deuteronomy 23, 12 to 14. Designate a place outside the camp where you may go to relieve yourself. As part of your equipment, have something to dig with. Then, when you do relieve yourself, first dig a hole and afterwards cover up your excrement. For Yahweh your Father moves about in the midst of your camp to protect you and to give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp must be holy, so he may see no unclean thing among you and turn away from you. Our duties to our fellow man. Law number 194. Stolen property must be returned to its owner. Leviticus 6, 2 to 5. If a person sins and commits a trespass against Yahweh by lying to his brother about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he has deceived and extorted from his brother, or if he has found what was lost and lies concerning it, or vows falsely, in any one of these things a man may do, sinning, then it shall be, because he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore what he has stolen, or the thing which he has deceitfully obtained, or what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or the lost thing which he found. For all he has vowed falsely about, he shall restore its full value, adding 1/5 more to it, and giving it to whomever it belongs on the day of his trespass offering. Law number 195. The poor must be taken care of according to Yahweh's laws. Deuteronomy 15, 8 and 11. But you must be open-handed to him and willingly lend him enough of whatever he needs. But the poor will never cease from the land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall open wide your hand to your poor and needy brother in your land. Law number 196. When a Hebrew slave goes free, the owner must give him gifts. Deuteronomy 15, 12 to 14 and 18. If your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, sells himself to you or is sold to you and serves you 6 years, then in the 7th year you must let him go free from you. And when he is released from you, you must not let him go away empty-handed. You must supply him liberally from your flock, from your threshing floor, and from your winepress. What Yahweh has blessed you with, you are to give him. It must not seem like a hardship to you when you set him free from you, for he has been worth twice as much as that of a hired hand these 6 years. Then Yahweh your Father will bless you in all that you do. Law number 197. Loans to brothers must be without interest. Exodus 22, verse 25. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not be like a money lender, charge him no interest. Law number 198. Loans to a foreigner may be with interest. Deuteronomy 23, verse 20. You may charge interest to a foreigner, but to your brother you must not charge interest, so that Yahweh your Father may bless you in all that you set your hand to do in the land you are entering to possess. Law number 199. Restore a pledge for a loan to its owner if he needs it. Deuteronomy 24, 12 to 13. If the man is poor, you must not hold his cloak security overnight. You must, in this case, return his cloak to him before the sun goes down, so he may sleep in his own garment. Then he will bless you, and it shall be accounted to you as righteousness in front of Yahweh, your Father. Law number 200. Pay the hired worker his wages at the agreed time. Deuteronomy 24, 14 to 15. Do not take advantage of a hired man who is poor and needy, whether one of your brothers or one of the strangers living in your cities. Pay him his wages each day before sunset, because he is poor and is counting on it. Otherwise, he might cry out to Yahweh against you, and you will be guilty of sin. Law number 201. Permit the poor to eat the produce of the vineyard or the standing grain. Deuteronomy 23:24-25. When you enter into your brother's vineyard, you may eat all the grapes you please, but you must not put any in any container. When you enter into your brother's standing grain, you may pick kernels with your hands, but you must not put a sickle to his standing grain. Law number 202. Help a stranger who has a fallen animal. Exodus 23:5. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you lying under its burden, and you might refrain from helping it, you shall surely help him with it. Law number 203. Help a brother who has a fallen animal. Deuteronomy 22:4. You shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox fallen on the road and ignore it. Be sure to help it get to its feet. Law number 204. Lost property must be restored to its owner. Deuteronomy 22:1. You shall not see your brother's ox or his sheep straying away and ignore it. Be sure to take it back to your brother. Law number 205. Those who sin must be corrected. Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. Rebuke your brother or your sister frankly, so you will not share in his or her guilt. Law number 206. Love your neighbor, whether a brother or an enemy, as yourself. Leviticus 19:18. Do not seek revenge nor bear a grudge against one of your own people, but you shall love your brother or your sister as yourself. I am Yahweh. Law number 207. Love the stranger and the new convert among you. Leviticus 19:34. The stranger living with you must be treated as one of your native born, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh. Law number 208. Use only honest weights and measures. Leviticus 19:36. You shall have honest balances, honest weights, an honest ephah, a dry measure, and an honest hin, a liquid measure. I am Yahweh your father, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Family. Law number 209. Show honor and respect for Yahweh's appointed teachers. Leviticus 19:32. You shall stand up before the gray-headed, and you shall honor the presence of an elder or teacher, thereby giving reverence to your heavenly Father. I am Yahweh. Law number 210. Show honor and respect to parents. Exodus 20:2. Honor your father and mother, so your days may be long upon the land which Yahweh your Father has given you. Law number 211. Become holy as Yahweh is holy. Leviticus 19:2. Speak to the congregation of the children of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Yahweh, your heavenly Father, am holy. Law number 212. Bring forth the holy seed, the 144,000 holy priesthood promised to Abraham. Genesis 1:26-28. Then Yahweh said, I will make man in my image according to my likeness. They will have rulership over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So Yahweh created man in his image. In the image of Yahweh, he created the man. Then he created the woman from the man. Then Yahweh blessed him, and Yahweh said to him, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have rulership over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Law number 213. Marriage must be according to Yahweh's laws. Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother, and he shall be united to his wife or wives in his own house, and they will therefore be as one family. Law number 214. A bridegroom is to rejoice with his bride. Deuteronomy 24:5. If a man has become recently married, he must not be sent to war or be charged with any other duty, but he shall be free at home 1 year and bring joyfulness to his wife he has married. Law number 215. All males must be circumcised, newborn males on the 8th day. Genesis 10:12-14. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the beginnings to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, even those who are not your offspring. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Law number 216. Should a man die childless, his brother must either marry the widow or Deuteronomy 25, 5-6. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother must take her and marry her to perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so his name will not be blotted out from Israel. Law number 217. He may release his brother's widow. Deuteronomy 25, 7-10. But if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the city gate and say, my husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a brother-in-law to me. Then the elders of his city shall summon him and talk to him. If he stands firm and says, I do not want to marry her, then his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to the man who will not build up his brother's house. Then his name in Israel shall be called the house of him who had his sandal removed. Law number 218. A man who violates a virgin must pay the bride price, marry her if the father permits, and may never divorce her. Deuteronomy 22, verse 29. Then the man who has sexual relations with her shall pay the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, that is about 1 1/4 pounds. Then she shall be his wife because he has humbled her. He shall not be permitted to divorce her as long as he lives. Law number 219. The priest must judge in a case of premarital promiscuity. Deuteronomy 22, 13-15. If any man takes a wife and after having sexual relations with her dislikes her and slanders her, giving her a bad name by saying, I took this woman and when I had sexual relations with her, I found she was not a virgin, then the father and mother of the young woman shall bring proof that she was a virgin to the city elders at the gate. Law number 220. A woman's father may utterly refuse to give his daughter to a man even though he pays the bride price. Exodus 22, 16-17. And if a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed to be married and sleeps with her, he must surely pay the bride's price for her, and she shall be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall still pay the bride price for virgins. Law number 221. The female captive must be treated in accordance with special regulations concerning repentance and conversion. Deuteronomy 21, 11-14. If you see among the captives a beautiful woman and are attracted to her, you may take her as a wife. Bring her into your house and have her shave her head and trim her nails, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. After she has lived in your house and mourned her father and mother for a full moon, then you may go to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she desires, but you certainly shall not sell her for money, nor treat her like a slave because you have humbled her. Law number 222. Divorce can only be for the case of premarital fornication by the bride. Deuteronomy 24, 1-4. When a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him, because he finds some uncleanness in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, and if after she leaves his house she becomes the wife of another man, and then that man also detests her and writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, or that man dies, leaving her a widow, then her first husband who divorced her must not take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled. This is an abomination in front of Yahweh, and you must not bring sin upon the land which Yahweh your father has given you as an inheritance. Law number 223. A woman suspected of adultery must submit to the required test. Numbers 5, 12-15. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, if any man's wife goes astray and behaves unfaithfully toward him by sleeping with another man, and this is hidden from her husband and her impurity undetected, since there was no witness against her, nor was she caught in the act, and if the spirit of jealousy comes over her husband and he suspects his wife and she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspects her even though she is not impure, Then the man shall bring his wife to the priest. He shall also bring the offering required for her, 1/10 of an ephah of barley meal, that is probably about 2 quarts. He shall pour no oil on it and put no frankincense on it, because it is a grain offering of jealousy, an offering of remembrance for bringing sin to remembrance. Judgments. Law number 224. When required by law, the judges must administer the appropriate punishment. Deuteronomy 25, verse 2 to 3. If the guilty man deserves to be beaten, the judge shall make him lie down and have him whipped in his presence with the number of lashes his crime deserves. But he must not give him more than 40 lashes. If he is whipped more than that, your brother will be degraded in your sight. Law number 225. The law concerning unintentional homicide. Numbers 35, 22 to 25. But if without hostility someone suddenly shoves another or unintentionally throws something at him, or without seeing him drops a stone on him that could kill him and he dies, then since he was not his enemy and he did not intend to harm him, the congregation must judge between him and the blood avenger according to these judgments. In these cases, the congregation must protect the one accused of murder from the hand of the blood avenger and send him back to the city of refuge to which he fled. He must stay there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the holy oil. Law number 226, the law concerning murder. Deuteronomy 19, 11 to 13. However, if someone hates his brother and lies in wait for him, then attacks and kills him, and then flees to one of these cities, the elders of the city he came from shall send for him, bring him back from the city of refuge, and hand him over to the blood avenger to die. You must not show pity to him. You must purge from Israel the guilt of shedding innocent blood so that it may go well with you. Law number 227, Numbers 15, 15 to 16. One ordinance shall be for you of the congregation and for the stranger who sojourns with you, as an ordinance forever throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be in front of Yahweh. One law and one manner shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. Law number 228. One who sins, breaks any of Yahweh's laws, whether unintentionally or intentionally, is guilty. Leviticus 5:17. If anyone sins and commits any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the laws of Yahweh, though he does not know it, yet he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity. Numbers 15, verse 30. But the person who sins presumptuously and defiantly, whether he is native born or is a stranger, that one brings reproach on Yahweh and blasphemes him, that person must be cut off from his people. Law number 229. The penalty of sin, which is the break and transgression of Yahweh's laws, is eternal death. Numbers 15, 30 to 31. But the person who sins presumptuously and defiantly, whether he is native born or is a stranger, that one brings reproach on Yahweh and blasphemes him. That person must be cut off from his people. Because he has despised the word of Yahweh and broken his laws, that person must surely be cut off, and his guilt shall be upon his own head. Deuteronomy 29, verse 20. Yahweh will never be willing to spare him, for Yahweh shall break forth in a destructive fire, and his jealousy will burn against that man. All the curses written in this book will fall upon him, and Yahweh will blot out his name from under heaven. Law number 230. Atonement can be made through a righteous high priest for those who truly repent of sin and turn in complete obedience to Yahweh's laws. Leviticus 16, 32 to 34. In this way, he will make atonement for the most holy place because of the uncleanness and rebellion of the children of Israel, whatever their sins have been. He is to do the same for the tent of meeting, the holy place, which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. And the priest who is anointed and consecrated and ordained to succeed his father as high priest is to make the atonement. He is to put on the holy linen garments and make atonement for the most holy place, for the tent of meeting, the holy place, and the altar, and for the priests and all the people of the congregation. This shall be an everlasting statute for you to make atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as Yahweh commanded Moshe. Law number 231. The body of one who is executed must be buried the same day. Deuteronomy 21, verse 23. His body must not remain overnight on the tree. You must surely bury him that day, so that you do not defile the land which Yahweh your father has given you as an inheritance. He who is hanged is accursed of Yahweh. Laws concerning slaves. Law number 232. Hebrew slaves must be treated according to the special laws for them. Exodus 21, 2 to 6. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year he shall go out free without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone, but if he has a wife when he comes, she is to go out with him. If his owner has given him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her owner, and the man shall go out by himself. But if the servant plainly says, I love my owner, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. Then his owner shall bring him to the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear through with an awl. Then he will be his servant for life. Law number 233. The owner or his son may marry his Hebrew maidservant. Exodus 21, 8-9. If she does not please her owner who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to strangers because he has broken faith with her. If he has betrothed her to his son, he shall grant her the rights of a daughter. Law number 234. If the owner or his son does not marry his Hebrew maidservant, he must allow her father to redeem her. Exodus 21, verse 8. If she does not please her owner who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to strangers because he has broken faith with her. Law number 235. The regulation of foreign slaves. Leviticus 25, 44-46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the sojourners living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You may take them as an inheritance to will to your children after you. They shall be your permanent slaves. For your brothers, the children of Israel, you shall not rule over one another ruthlessly. Lawsuits. Law number 236. Judgment must be rendered in the case of injury caused by a person. Exodus 21, 18-25. And if men quarrel and one hits the other with a stone or with his fist or a tool, and he does not die but is confined to bed, if the other gets up and walks around outside with his staff, the one who struck the blow will not be held responsible. However, he must pay the injured man for the loss of his time and see that he is completely healed. Or if a man beats his servant or his maidservant with a rod and the slave dies as a direct result, he must surely be punished. However, if he is not to be punished if the slave gets up after a day or two, since the slave is his property. If men fight and hurt a woman with child so that she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Law number 237. Judgment must be rendered in the case of injury caused by an animal. Exodus 21, 28-29. If a bull gores a man or a woman to death, then the bull shall surely be stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten. But the owner of the bull will not be held responsible. But if the bull tended to thrust out with its horns, and this was made known to its owner, and he has not kept it pinned up, so that it has killed a man or a woman, the bull shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. Law number 238. Judgment must be rendered in the case of injury caused to an animal. Exodus 21, 33-34. And if a man uncovers the pit or digs a pit and fails to cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit must pay for the loss. He must pay its owner, and the dead animal will be his. Law number 239. A thief must make full restitution or else be sold for his theft. Exodus 22, 1-4. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall pay back 5 head of oxen for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, the defender is not guilty for his bloodshed. But if he strikes him after sunrise, he is guilty of bloodshed. A thief must make full restitution, but if he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft is found alive in his possession, whether it is an ox, donkey, or sheep, he shall pay back double. Law number 240. Judgment must be rendered in cases of property damage caused by animals. Exodus 22, verse 5. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animals and they feed in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. Law number 241. Judgment must be rendered in cases of fire damage. Exodus 22, verse 6. If a fire breaks out and catches in thorn bushes so that it burns standing grain or a field, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. Law number 242. Judgment must be rendered in cases involving items held for safekeeping. Exodus 22, 7-8. If a man gives his brother silver or possessions for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the brother's house, the thief, if he is caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, then the owner of the house must appear in front of the judges to determine whether he has laid his hands on the other man's property. Law number 243. Judgment must be rendered in cases involving animals held for safekeeping. Exodus 22:10-13. If a man gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to his brother for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured or is driven away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by an oath of Yahweh that the brother did not lay hands on the other person's property, and the owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the brother, he must make restitution to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, he shall bring in the remains as evidence, and he will not be required to pay for the torn animal. Law number 244. Judgment must be rendered in cases of claims against a borrower. Exodus 22:14-15. And if a man borrows an animal from his brother and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, he must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. Law number 245. Judgment must be rendered in disputes arising out of sales. Leviticus 25:14-17. And if you sell anything to your brother or buy from your brother's hand, you shall not oppress one another. You are to buy from your brother on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee, and he is to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price, and when the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what he is really selling you is the number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, thereby reverencing your father, for I am Yahweh, your heavenly Father. Law number 246. Judgment must be rendered in disputes over possessions of property. Exodus 22:9. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property which another claims to be his, both parties are to bring their cases in front of the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to his brother. Law number 247. Monetary restitution must be paid in cases involving bodily damage. Deuteronomy 25:11-12. If two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from the one attacking him, and she reaches out and seizes him by his genitals, you shall cut off her hand, show her no pity. Exodus 21:23-25. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Law number 248. Judgment must be rendered in disputes arising out of inheritance. Numbers 27:8-11. And you shall speak to the children of Israel and say, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall cause his inheritance to pass to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to the nearest kinsman in his clan, and he shall possess it. And this shall be to the children of Israel a statute of judgment, just as Yahweh commanded Moshe. Deuteronomy 21:15-17. If a man has two wives, one loved more and the other loved less, and they both bear him sons, but the firstborn is the son of the wife he loves less, when he wills his property to his sons, he must not give the rights of the firstborn to the son of the wife he loves more, in preference to his actual firstborn, the son of the wife he loves less. He must acknowledge the son of his less loved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all he has. That son is the first sign of his father's strength. The right of the firstborn belongs to him. This concludes the 248 positive commandments. Yahweh's 613 laws, a reference guide, the 365 prohibitions, God worship, the worship of Elohim and related practices. Law number 1, do not trust in any power but Yahweh. Exodus 20:3. You shall have no hinder gods, Elohim, at all. They are in opposition against me. Law number 2, do not make images of the gods to be worshipped. Exodus 20:4. You shall not make for yourself any carved image, an idol, in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. Law number 3, do not take on the character of the gods. Leviticus 19:4. Do not turn to the gods, Elohim, nor make for yourself molten images. I am Yahweh, your Father. Law number 4, do not make gods out of anything. Exodus 20:23. Do not make for yourselves gods, Elohim or teraphim, of silver or gold alongside of me. Law number 5, do not bow down to any god. Exodus 20:5. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, Yahweh your Father, am a jealous heavenly Father, punishing the children for the law breaking of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Law number 6, do not worship, serve, obey, nor follow the ways, laws of the gods. Deuteronomy 4:15-19. Take careful heed to yourselves, for you saw no form when Yahweh spoke to you at Horeb from the midst of the fire. Watch that you do not become corrupt and make for yourselves a god, El, Turpah, an image of any shape, whether formed like a man or a woman, or like any animal on earth, or any bird that flies in the air, or like any creature that moves along the ground, or any fish in the waters below. And when you look up to the sky and you see the sun, the moon, and all the stars, all that which is arrayed in the heavens, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping things Yahweh has allotted to all the nations of heaven. Law number 7, do not sacrifice children to any god. Leviticus 18:21. Shall not give any of your children to be passed through the fire to sacrifice them to Molech. You shall not profane the name of Yahweh by giving your children to gods, Elohim. I am Yahweh. Law number 8, do not seek after mediums. Leviticus 19:31. Do not turn to mediums nor familiar spirits. Do not seek after them to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh. Law number 9, do not seek after familiar spirits. Leviticus 19:31. Do not turn to mediums nor familiar spirits. Do not seek after them to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh. Law number 10, do not seek to learn the ways of the gods in order to follow them. Deuteronomy 12:30. Be careful not to be ensnared into following them by asking about their gods, Elohim, saying, how did these nations serve their gods, Elohim? I also will do the same. Law number 11, do not use a sacred pillar or pole for the worship of Yahweh. Do not set the feast by it. Deuteronomy 16:21-22. You must not plant a tree to be used as a sacred pole, Asherah pole, for setting pagan feasts beside the altar which you shall make to Yahweh your Father. And you must also not set up a sacred pillar, image of the sun god Baal, for these Yahweh your Father hates. Law number 12, do not make gods out of carved stone. Leviticus 26:1. You shall not make gods, Elohim, Teraphim, for yourselves. Neither an image nor a sacred pillar shall you raise up for yourselves, nor you set up a carved stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am Yahweh, your Father. Number 13, do not worship Asherah, the queen of heaven. Deuteronomy 16:21. You must not plant a tree to be used as a sacred pole, Asherah pole, for setting pagan feasts beside the altar which you shall make to Yahweh your Father. Law number 14, do not vow or worship in the name of any god. Exodus 23:13. In all things I have said to you, be careful to do them, and make no mention of the name of hinder gods, Elohim, neither let it be heard from your mouth. Law number 15, do not teach or entice any community to worship gods. Deuteronomy 13:12-14. If you hear it said about one of the cities that Yahweh has given you to live in, that corrupt men has risen up among you and enticed and led the inhabitants of their own city astray, saying, let us go and worship gods, Elohim, which you have not known, then you might inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. And if it is true and it has been proven that such an abomination was committed among you, law number 16, do not teach or entice any individual to worship gods. Deuteronomy 13:6-8. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son or daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or your closest friend, secretly entices and tempts you, saying, let us go and worship gods, Elohim, that neither you nor your father have known, gods, Elohim, of the people around you, whether close to you or far away from you, gods, Elohim, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not yield to them, nor even listen to them. Show them no pity. Do not spare them, nor conceal them. Law number 17.
All right, y'all. We're going to end right here. We've done about 2 hours and 9 minutes, and, there's more time left on this. So we will just pick up with this next week. Please make sure you check your email, because I'm not going to broadcast it publicly anymore because it's just drawing too many trolls. And I will send you the email. I know there's some people, I've said this before, and they're just not listening. So I may have to either put something in my community tab or tell people to email me for the link. And, just got to be careful that the link don't go to a troll. I was hoping that people would get it the first time, but they're not. So I know what's going to happen. As soon as I post this, they're going to say, I didn't get the notification. I didn't get it. So hopefully, I'll put in there, maybe I'll respond to some of them and tell them to email me. So guys, thank you so much for coming, and we'll pick up with the laws next week and we'll finish everything up. So please, please, please enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. And until we meet again next week, Shabbat Shalom, family.